Right now, we're going to begin section 6 in the Preparing to Plant manual. And in this section, we're going to be looking at the people involved in a church plant. Specifically, we're going to look at the group of people that you're called to reach. We'll call them the target group that you're trying to connect with and reach with the good news of Jesus. We'll also talk about the team that God is assembling to go on his mission to reach people. And then we'll circle back and talk about you as the church planter and how all those things relate together. It helps to look at this graphic here on the screen from Will Mancini in his book, Church Unique, that sort of puts together the target, the team, and the planter and how those work together. First, let me take your attention to the target. And we're asking the question, who are the people you will serve? Now, as we ask that question, we need to keep in mind that Jesus' mission is to reach all people with his good news. And so I want to circle back to Jesus' mission for every community. I'm going to take you to Acts 26, where Saul again recounts his own Damascus Road experience to King Agrippa. And when I was ordained 30-something years ago, I think I've mentioned prior, these were my marching orders, and I believe they're the marching orders of every church planter. So I encourage you to take note. This is what the Lord said to Saul, who becomes Paul, and I believe it's what he says to you and me as planters. He says this, "I'm Jesus whom you are persecuting," the Lord replied. "Now get up and stand on your feet. I have appeared to you to appoint you as a servant and as a witness of what you have seen of me and what I will show you. I will rescue you from your own people and from the Gentiles. I am sending you to them to open their eyes and turn them from darkness to light and from the power of Satan to God, so that they may receive forgiveness of sins and a place among those who are sanctified by faith in me." Just pause with me for a second. Isn't that amazing? God's mission for you and me as church planters is to specifically go in and be used by him so that he can take people from darkness to light and from the power of Satan to the power of God, so that they can receive forgiveness of sins and a place among those who are sanctified by faith in Jesus. You and I as church planters are on the front line. We're going into dark places. We're going into places that are influenced by the power of Satan, and God's mission for you and me is that he might use us to bring these people back to himself. That's what we're doing. That's the target. That's the mission. That's the goal. And for that to happen, however, there's some things for us to think about. Paul says that he became all things to all men so that he, by all means, might save some. So it's good for us to realize who are the people specifically in the context in which he has called us. So this idea gets at it. We're called to reach all people, but who are the most likely? So Will Mancini will call this the local predicament. What's the context in which he has placed you? What's your local predicament? What are the specific problems that people have in your area? What are their specific needs in that area? What are their unique opportunities? This is where work with demographics, psychographics, etc., that we've talked about will be also very helpful to us. So this is what we're looking at on the graphic right now, the target. What is your local predicament? What are your special problems? What are your specific needs? When we launched our second church here in the Temecula Valley, we had a lot of people who had moved in. They were able to buy homes here, and they moved from LA County, Orange County, San Diego County. So they had affordable homes, but they were stretched on their mortgages. They worked really hard, usually a 1.5 to 2 hour drive away. So they're busy. They're for the most part making their mortgages, or they were at the time before we had the whole financial crisis hit. But what they didn't have was relationships. They had new homes, they had families, they had no time, they had no friends, they had no real way to make them. So when we launched the church here, we really built it on community, getting to know your neighbors. That was part of our local context. Now we're planting a church online in the midst of COVID. And we're leaning into our healthcare heroes. So we've been doing some headbands that hold face masks because we saw this need that the ears of our healthcare heroes get tired. It just came to us in a long, complicated way. But now we're in something like 12 to 15 hospitals, and some of these are across the nation, and we're just a small online church. But this is our context. We also have, through COVID, lots of people who have financial needs. They've lost jobs. And so we've had a little bit of extra resources because we don't have a high overhead in the way we do church. So we set aside dollars in the midst of COVID, and we've instructed our team to say to people on their path, the people that they meet, that if they see a need that we can meet, just get in there and meet it, and we'll reimburse you. And we keep thinking of ways to serve people on the path because of COVID, because of finances, because of a healthcare crisis. But I'm getting at the idea that you'll think over for yourself, who's your target? You know your mission. What are the specific needs in which you can look to address those needs and bring them to the hope of Jesus? You know, we say that our mission is to love God and to love others. Well, we want to love others in our context in such a way that they see the love of God in that. We want to love them in such a way that they know that God sees them and God cares for them, and then they become interested in the God that we serve. And that's by understanding our local predicament. I'll take you to another example here. This is an example from New Heights Church, where I served for 5 years, starting an organization called Northwest Church Planting, New Heights in Vancouver, Washington. They've really worked through this in regard to their own church services. Now, they did this pre-COVID, but it's their plan as they're moving back in, I'm sure. Listen real quickly as I walk you through their thought process in what they're doing with their Sunday services specifically, and why they're doing it. I'm not saying you should do this. I'm just saying this is a great example of thinking through what you're trying to do, who you're trying to reach. So they put together some concentric circles, and they defined their Saturday night, Sunday morning worship services with these targets in mind. Really interesting to me. First, they're trying to reach the new believer, someone who's come to faith. They need to get grounded. So as they speak to them, as the messages go out, they're not dumbed down in any regard, but they make them as simple as they can so that a new believer can understand it. Secondly, they say that what they're also trying to do is reach the searching non-believer. They're looking for people who have come because they're interested and they want to remember that those people are there and love them well. This is really interesting to me. The third line of who they're trying to reach is the 10th grader. Because people who are non-believers who are searching, they'll just walk away and you'll never hear from them. A 10th grader moving toward college might also just walk away and you'll never hear from them. So they want to make sure they grab the next generation. So anytime they do their services, they're working first for the new believer, for the non-believer, for the 10th grader, and then finally, the mature Christian. Because the mature Christian has had time, they have the Word, they have the Holy Spirit, and so they're very interested in engaging the mature Christians into the mission that they're all on, and not just having services for the mature Christian who may be the squeaky wheel in some occasions. But these other folks will just leave and you'll never hear from them again. So I thought it was really interesting, but it's just an example of how you can engage in your target.